giant like shotgun looking thing, and I'd asked him like, had he ever shot it? And he said, this thing doesn't even have bullets in it. So this morning when I was reading through the comments on my videos, I came across two that really stood out to me, and one of them was warning people on one of my recent Vietnam videos, warning other people not to go there because it's a dangerous place and all these terrible things are going to happen to you if you go to Vietnam. And another one was here in Pattaya, one of my Pattaya videos. They said Pattaya is a place that should be avoided at all costs. It's dangerous here, and you know, it's not somewhere that you should think about coming. And I find both of those to be very wrong. So join me today as I take a walk down the beach here in Pattaya and we'll talk about just how dangerous it is here in Southeast Asia. So I've been living in Thailand for a year and a half now, and I've never felt unsafe, even for a second here. And I've been coming, you know, not just here in Bangkok where I live, but I've been traveling all over the country, and I've never had any bad situations happen to me. Living in Bangkok, or actually everywhere I go, it's not something I even think of anymore. You know, I always carry my wallet on me. I have no problems carrying, if I carry large amounts of money. I have my bank card on me at all times. You're not carrying around a camera most of the time, and phone and watch and all these expensive things that I have on me at all times, and it's not something that even enters my mind that I would need to be careful of those things. In Thailand, I've been all through the country basically. I've been up north, down south, I've been through the countryside and small villages. In Bangkok, I've been through the slum-like areas or poorer neighborhoods and local districts, and these places, while they may be visually intimidating, I find they're almost better. The people there are so friendly. I've been through, you know, Klong Toi, and I ended up making a whole lot of friends in there, and it's somewhere I go back and visit quite frequently. When I do visit these places, I find that people, they're just so warm and friendly, and if you enter with good vibes and you smile and you're positive and you say hello to people, you'll be received in the same way. So I've been on over 20 trips through Southeast Asia, and I've been pretty much everywhere that you can go, with the exception of Laos. I haven't been to Laos yet, but I will be going there before the end of the year, so I'll be able to report back to you on what it's like there. But from what I've heard from my friends that have been there, they've had nothing but great experiences as well. So over my 12 years and 20 plus trips here to Southeast Asia, I've had no real issues. You know, I've had a couple little hiccups and some rookie errors along the way, but nothing that wouldn't happen in any other country in the world. Now, the Philippines is a really interesting one. So I love the Philippines. I think I've been there 8 times maybe, and I've had nothing but amazing experiences every time I've been there. I do, however, think the Philippines is probably more visually intimidating than any other country that I've been to in Southeast Asia. And a big part of that is that there's armed guards everywhere. You know, there's security out the front of everywhere. Hotels, most office buildings, even convenience stores have security guards with giant guns out the front. And this is, you know, this is more out of tradition than necessity, but definitely I think when you see it for the first time, it can be quite off-putting. The last time I was there, my hotel guard had this giant like shotgun looking thing, and I'd asked him like, had he ever shot it? And he said, this thing doesn't even have bullets in it. He'd never actually shot a gun, any gun ever in his life, because I asked, you know, do you need to get a gun license or whatever? And he said, look, the majority of them, it's just for show. Most of them don't have bullets, or they don't know how to shoot, or they don't need to shoot. But everywhere you go, there are armed guards. So I do understand why people think the Philippines is dangerous. I've actually done a video on Is the Philippines Dangerous when I was there at the beginning of this year. So I'll leave a link for that video. Check it out. The Philippines is not dangerous at all. There's parts of it that are definitely very visually intimidating, but it's not an intimidating place to go, and it's not dangerous, I don't think. When I was in Manila, I went everywhere throughout the city. I walked into slum-like neighborhoods and squatter areas. I went to Tondo, which is a place I was told to avoid, and I had an amazing day in there. I also made a video for that. But I found everywhere I went, people would just greet me friendly. I mean, it's the same as what I was saying in Thailand. If you walk through and you're a positive person, they'll be the same back. But if you walk through and you've got attitude or you're being a dick, you may land yourself in trouble. That's not a thing exclusive to the Philippines. That's anywhere in the world really. Now on Vietnam being dangerous, I found that kind of interesting because I don't really know where that's coming from. You know, there's not a huge amount of tourism, so they don't have the common tourist traps that you find in places like Thailand or Bali or, you know, places like that, they just don't have those things there. I know the crime rate in Vietnam is quite low, and, you know, walking around there every day, it's not something I even thought of. You know, the same as here, I carried my wallet everywhere I went. I had my camera with me the majority of the time, and I never found myself in a situation where it was even on my mind. I walked pretty much everywhere in Saigon. I explored all over the city, walked through local neighborhoods and, you know, those weird little windy back roads of like a maze of houses, and had nothing but amazing experiences. On my very first day, I had a group of people invite me into their house and asked me to drink with them, and they shared their food with me. They didn't want any money or anything. They just did it out of the kindness of their heart. And this is what my perception of people in Vietnam are like. They want to go out of their way to make sure you're having a great experience there. This was my third time visiting Vietnam and not feeling at all unsafe. And, you know, that's not to say that crime doesn't happen. I mean, crime happens in every country in the world. I'm from Sydney, Australia. I actually personally would feel more unsafe in Sydney. I don't ever feel unsafe in Sydney, but I think Sydney is a city that I would feel more unsafe in than anywhere that I visited in Vietnam. And then lastly, Pattaya, where I am now. I understand why people would say to avoid this place. You know, I put out a video, it was the common scams and things that happen to tourists here in Pattaya, and that video has now got 500,000 views, and it's reached a new audience that maybe don't know that much about this place. And while there are those scams, you know, I talk about things like the jet ski scam and the motorbike scam of returning them, and that they try and tell you that they're damaged more than when they left. You know, these are, I want to say they're common scams. They are a scam that does happen, but it doesn't happen to every single person. You know, there's jet skis all along the beach here, and people rent them every day without issue. It's just every now and then these issues do come along. I personally experienced a jet ski scam here in Thailand, but it was actually in Phuket, not here in Pattaya. And, you know, at the end of the day, it wasn't that bad. I got scammed out of like 20 bucks or something. Just long story short, a whole bunch of us were out there on jet skis. One of them ran out of petrol, and they charged us for the time because we were late coming back because one of them ran out of petrol. So we tried to say that we shouldn't have been charged because it's not our fault they ran out of petrol. But anyway, whatever. Long story short, 20 bucks, it's not the end of the world. Pattaya is a place entirely fueled by tourism, so there are going to be people taking advantage of that, people taking advantage of tourism. You know, taxis charge too much and things like this, but, you know, that's not a reason to avoid the place. The place is still a lot of fun and great to come visit. And to the majority of people that come here, you know, paying an extra couple of bucks for a taxi is not a big deal, especially when you're here on a holiday and you compare it to what you pay for a taxi back home. It's really not a big deal at all. I actually think now is a really good time to visit Pattaya because while tourism's coming back, there's still not that much of it. The place is not completely overrun. You can walk into a bar and sit down where you want. You can walk into a restaurant and get a table right away. It's funny, over the last year, I've gotten used to how quiet it's been, I guess, and as it's getting busier and busier, you start to see the changes here, and a small part of me misses how it was when it was much quieter here. I don't think Pattaya is a place to avoid because of these things. You know, there may be tourist traps or whatever, but that's the same everywhere. If you're from Australia, try going to an island in Australia and see how much you charge for everything. It's like 4 times the amount of what you should be charged. They're basically just taking advantage of tourism as well. It's just the reality of what happens when you're somewhere that has a captive audience. So is there anywhere in Southeast Asia I think you should avoid? The answer's no. Basically, as long as you're smart when you travel, crime typically decreases year on year, and any of these horror stories you might have heard happened 10, 15, 20 years ago, and the reality is the world's just a different place now.